My name is Enrique Goytizolo, and I am from Lima, Peru. I've been in Fairhaven, this is Fairhaven, for almost 20 years. But I came from Lima to go to a school, and I studied interior design at a New York School of Interior Design for 4 years. And then when I graduated, I opened an antique shop in Manhattan, and I kept it for many years, almost 30 something years. But after 6 years, I was invited to participate at a New York Winter Antique Show. It is a premier show in the country. And I did the show for 42 years. But then, besides the winter show in New York, I participate in many other shows in the country. You know, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Lake Forest, Grosse Pointe, Southport, Philadelphia, and Boston, the Ellis Memorial one. Those are the principal antique shows, and they're all charity shows. And so then I moved to Fairhaven and opened a gallery on 4th Street and Center Street. And then I have retired last year from doing shows, and so I moved here to 88 Hatch Street in New Bedford. And I am in the process of organizing this space, and I will try to call my clients and friends so I will be able to sell the merchandise, whatever I have left.
How did you initially start your business and get your initial clients?
As I said, you know, when I was going to school, the school always introduced us to other kind of businesses that they're related to the field of interior design. And I chose to work for an antique shop in New York. It was Sylvia Tristan Antiques, a well-known antique company. And so I had experience in working for 3 years with her. And then when I graduated, I had the opportunity to open the business. And I had many collectors and people from different areas. At that moment, you know, it was the 70s. And it was very fashionable to collect antiques. And I specialize in English antiques, and especially Regency period, that is around 1810, 1820. And so then after doing the shows, I started to get a following. And then the people start to come, and those become clients. And that was the way.
Why do you choose to collect antiques from a particular time period?
I personally like very much, you know, English antiques. I like the quality of the merchandise. I like the design, very simple designs. I like the cabinet makers of the 18th century and early 19th century, and I like the selection of the woods. And so that is the way I chose the specific, you know, that kind of antiques.
As our beauty standards today change very rapidly, how do you think antiques still have a position in the market and stay the old way?
I think that it's like waves. You know, I have always been interested in people for antiques. I think that, you know, it's very difficult to see houses that they're decorated completely in a new fashion that is very modern, you know, very minimalist. I think that mostly people like, you know, to have antiques, something that have history and well done, you know. And so in my experience, you know, almost all the clients that I have, their houses are decorated in that fashion.
What would you say to be the standard of a good piece of antique collection work?
Well, you know, mostly the people, there were some things that they were manufactured in quantity, and then there were some things that they were done by particular cabinet makers. And that at the 18th century, the cabinet makers, not only they created their own designs, but they even introduced the upholstery and the way the upholstery should be done. and so mostly the people who collect, they will want to have the best quality, cabinet makers furniture, which is much more expensive, of course, but they're much more rare to find as well.
So as we move into today and we have lesser actual like artists crafting the tables and we have more machines, so would you predict in the future there will be a decrease in antiques?
I think that it will be much more limited, but they will always exist. And although today, for instance, they are not as much interested in antiques, the new generation, they like more ready fabricated things because it's less money, but also they don't have the quality or the durability, So I think that it will come back again, that people will, choose antiques because of the way that they have been created.
Do you think the fame of a particular piece of work can really drive people to buy it? Like, even though if it might not be visually like as good, but if the artist is very famous, would people still buy it?
There's two things that people tend to follow. Many people will follow a particular cabinet maker because he created that particular style, and many other people, they are interested in the provenance of the piece, who have owned the piece previously, and that also can contribute to the price of the items.
How do you think different cultures and different regions and different time periods have different styles in the antique works you see?
In England, in particular, mostly you tend to relate the style of the furniture to the king or the queen of the moment. And that is the reason, like for instance, Georgian, like after Queen Anne, all the Georgian, there were several, George the First, George the Second, George the Third, George the Fourth, and Regency. But all of them have been related until the Victorian time. Like there's a lot of furniture that you related to Victoria, Queen Victoria. And then after that one, is Edwardian. And then after that, now we don't have anything that is related to the King of England at the moment, and so maybe, in the future, maybe some furniture will be related to him, but until now, no. So the last moment is really Edwardian, so it's around 1900.
Does the choice of wood matters?
Yes, it does. Like many people will collect, for instance, what you will call the age of walnut, the age of oak, the age of mahogany, and then there were so many exotic woods that they were imported, from the colonies, to England. And therefore, some of them, they were very, very narrow. They were not large, trees. They were small veneers that they would do from small branches, but they were used mostly as veneers for decorating, the edges of pieces of stable. But, for instance, mahogany, it was imported, from Honduras or Santo Domingo, from Cuba, and they were very, very strong. Walnut was one of the favorite, woods, but it's very, very soft. And so it was not an easy wood to last long as mahogany. Mahogany was much easier for carving, because it's a strong woods. And so many other in India, there was wonderful, hard woods that they enjoyed.
Is there a particular social class that all the customers mainly come from?
Like we used to say, the upper class have always in England, be the ones who could afford it, to buy. And then in many, many cases, in the 18th century in particular, they will ask a cabinet maker to make specific pieces for their houses. And then so many of the manor houses of England, they still have the original furniture that was done in the early part of the 18th century. And even now, the people who can afford to buy, antiques are the people who have the means, Here and there, you're going to find out that people, working class people, still they can try to save money and to invest it, one piece a year or two pieces a year, but they like the quality and they admire, pieces that they were well made. I don't think it's a matter of how much money that people tend to have for choosing how to live with. I think it's more a matter of taste, and appreciation. So mostly it's up to the people.
Why does the value of a piece of like antique work increases after the artist dies?
I think that it is and it has been, in through the centuries that, if you buy a piece of work or a piece of antiques and you're well maintained, and then it goes to the next generation, so you have many, many years in the possession of a particular family, always have been that increases in value. And the other hand, at the moment, many people will say antiques are so inexpensive compared to what they used to be in the 70s, 80s, even in the 90s. So now is the moment to buy antiques because the prices they went down. And some in general, like many families, they inherit, from their grandparents or the parents, and they don't want it because they're too large or they are set of chairs and the people, they have changed. The decoration, the way of living is different. And so they don't want it and they sell it. So prices went down. Some pieces, individual pieces, still maintain, their prices and will always be, will be always expensive.
What are the qualities that makes them like eternally expensive?
The condition of the piece and the condition of the piece and who was done. Generally people pieces that they're individual, like I don't know, a cabinet, an armchair, a side table, an occasional table, something that is easy, to live with. When you talk about a dining table, like a three-pedestal dining table or a set of 12 chairs, it's much harder to be able to accommodate, especially nowadays in the way we live, apartments. You don't have the space for that.
Yeah. When you invest in like buying these stuff, are there some things that like when you see, oh, this is gonna grow instantly?
Yeah, I think that, we dealers or collectors, they always, when they see a piece that is more rare and well done, you think that is a good investment. And therefore you will purchase it. And in our business, many times we buy things that we think that they're, something to be admired. And it doesn't matter if you sell it, right away. I mean, some of us, we can have pieces for many years that we haven't been able to sell until the right person will come and recognize what it is and will purchase it.
It's like buying a Harry Potter wand.
Exactly. Nowadays, there are so many of that new things that the people collect, sport cards, and it's different. It have changed. In our case, we sell furniture and related accessories.
Do you think artificial intelligence is ever going to overtake antique works?
I don't think we'll take over, but I think that in a way, in many, many cases, it will be easier to do because, nowadays, if you're interested in a particular item, you can try to find through them. And it doesn't matter where in the world it is, you can find it. And so that's a help. Before, there are people who has to go to antique shops that now really don't exist anymore, and or shows, antique shows, and those are the only ways that you could really be exposed. Nowadays, in the internet, is have changed completely. So you really find it on the web, and it's easier to locate the pieces.